When people talk about PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder, they are usually referring to returning military veterans or survivors of catastrophic events. Yet many other people suffer from stress-related issues that are not unlike PTSD. In fact, it can be argued that they do have PTSD. Today's guest puts forward exactly that case and shares how people can overcome some of the past traumas that continue to disrupt their daily lives. I'm Jane Singer, and welcome back to A Seat at the Table. It's a pleasure to have you here as part of our worldwide audience that now reaches exceptional people like you in over 140 countries. Today we'll be talking with Terry Earthwind Nichols. Terry is a best-selling author who is known as the father of Repetitive Behavior Cellular Regression, a methodology that helps people decrease anxiety, fear, procrastination, self-sabotage, and overcome overall stress so that they can live healthier and happier lives. In this episode, Terry will be discussing some of the overlooked incidents that can lead to PTSD, the often hidden signs of PTSD, and most importantly, specific action steps that people can take to overcome PTSD. Now, before we get started, if you're stressed about getting your quarterly or year-end industry report done, headquarters is breathing down your neck, but you've got so many other things you also need to get done as well, then you might want to take a look at the current situation in sourcing. These quarterly reports summarize everything about the current situation in global supply chains. Plus, you get actual feedback from other sourcing executives, adding that critical third-party perspective. If you're worried that this is just another one of those long-winded corporate-style reports, then you'll be pleasantly surprised to find that the current situation in sourcing is carefully edited, so it's only 6 pages. No complicated graphs, no hard-to-read charts, just 6 very tightly edited pages of all the facts that you need to know about the current situation in global supply chains. If you'd like to learn more, head on over to thecurrentsituation.net. That's thecurrentsituation.net. I'll leave links in the show notes and in the description for this episode. Now let's hear from Terry about how we can tackle PTSD. Thank you very much for joining us here on A Seat at the Table. I appreciate your taking the time. I know that you're a busy man.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to have this talk.
Yeah, me too. I think that what you talk about, I mean, you have a lot of things that you cover, and we'll only focus on one thing because we could just go on and on forever. But I think that what you brought up the last time we spoke that I think is particularly relevant is your thoughts around PSTD and the fact that you said that a lot of it isn't even diagnosed, that people don't know what to recognize. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, that's a great question to start out with. Most people, unless they've had some reason to gain knowledge about post-traumatic stress, don't know they have it. It's just that record just keeps playing and they can't get rid of it. And that same dream keeps coming over and over and over again at night, and the terrors associated with it. They're walking down the street and all of a sudden they smell something or they think they smell something and they're in a total anxiety attack. Those are different things. And then they tell themselves, oh, I'm okay.
Right.
I'm okay. I can get through this.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you can get through it over and over and over again. Or you can find the source of what's causing that all the time and work with it so that it stops coming back. And so when I was helping back in 2009, when I was helping a person on social media, I had a hunch. I already knew that the number one sense of the 5 senses to trigger a memory was smell. And that's been proven in behavioral health over and over and over again. And so I asked this lady, close her eyes, just be calm for a couple of minutes. She was really, really excited. And I said, I'll tell you what, just allow yourself to go back in time without addressing a memory or anything like that. And tell me the first thing you smell. And she popped her eyes open. And I said, no, keep your eyes closed. She says, oh my God, I smell my favorite apple pie. And I go, that's nice. I can go with that. And I said, okay, close your eyes again. Why do you think you're upset about the smell of apple pie if you love apple pie? Well, I don't know. I says, well, let's find out.
Mm.
Do you have a memory where you're smelling that apple pie right now, anywhere back in time? And she says, yes, he's here. She's here, he's here is bad words. That
Mm.
means Uncle Paul is a he, or Aunt Josie is a she, because
Mm.
bad things are happening. And the first thing, ladies and gentlemen, that you might think of is physical or sexual abuse or anything like that. And we found in a lot of these memories helping people over the last decade plus that it's not necessarily sexual or physical abuse. Okay. It can be a little kid who doesn't have any language skills observing he beating on the dog again, and they start crying. They don't understand why um Uncle Paul, he would be beating on a dog. The dog was just playing, you know, but it was a significant emotional event. Okay. And why do I say it like that? Well, there's no bad memories, there's no good memories, there's simply memories. How we react to them determines if what we consider bad or good becomes from it. So, if we're able to find that kind of a memory way back in early childhood, using the five senses to draw us back to memories rather than the story of a memory, two things happen. When we get to a memory, we tell the person, freeze frame this memory into a photograph. You're just looking at a photo. Nobody's walking around, nobody's doing anything. It's completely out of action. So here's what happens with that. If there's no action, there's no reaction to the memory, and there's no story to the memory. And if you're completely out of emotion from that, there's no ego asking questions. You're fully present with what's going on right now with your eyes closed. And I have them close their eyes because even though we may be on the internet, you're still looking around. That crooked picture behind you. I need to fix that picture. That's not being fully present, but you close your eyes, you are there. Okay. So, repetitive behavior cellular regression, a trademarked sequence that I have developed further, helps a person go back and in an alternate neural pathway back to early childhood. And the reason why we do that is when this high event, emotional event memory was occurred, a protection device kicked into your brain called amnesia. Amnesia shuts off your ability to recall this traumatic event. Okay. Well, it also shuts off your ability to remember everything before that. So there's a blockage there, an active block. Well, when we use the senses, we take a new neural pathway back to the back of the brain where the senses are and work our way forward where this memory is not being protected. Now, amnesia is not a bad thing. It's protection. It's helping you to not go through this trauma over and over again. And so when we help them get into that memory, it's like they're there right now. It's like active. The main thing is they're out of emotion. They're fully present as an adult rather than this kid that can't understand what's going on. And they get to tell that person off that caused that event why they did that and release all this emotion from 10, 20, 30, 50 years. Some of my clients suffered from these for 50, 55 years.
Wow.
And all of that is release. And wow, the calm that comes over the people when they do that. But then we teach them how in the future, when they get triggered by something of high emotion, because we're emotional people, it's going to happen again. we teach them to ask themselves three questions, and within 3 to 5 seconds, they're perfectly calm. Everything's gone. Okay. And it can be in a busy room where people don't even know that you're reacting to something and you're perfectly calm. So that's kind of a long answer for what you said, but it gives a good basis for what I think we're going to end up talking about today.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've shared an incredible amount just so far. Now, I guess there's two different things that I would want to ask you about, based on what you've just shared. One of which is you talk about this 2 to 3 second sequence that people can go through, regardless of where they are, even if they're, like you said, in public, in amongst other people. What might that be? Can you give us, I mean, even just a snapshot of what that would be?
There are three questions, and they're standard questions in 5 different languages across the world for us so far. We're big. But which of my 5 senses just went off? What made me react?
Mhm.
What memory do I immediately think of? And who am I looking at? Now, you can be looking at a stadium full of thousands of people, but you're only seeing one person at that specific time. And by doing so, you zero in on the person who's causing this reaction. Then you do the neutralization process. I won't go into that today, ladies and gentlemen. You can contact me about that because it's long. But you neutralize that face, that memory, that reaction, and boom, you're done. It's completely gone. And you might end up going back to that same memory several times. It's not because you can't hold on to the memory. It's because we take in about 2 million memories a day. So you could be in the same location with the same people and different things you will react to. So that's how that's done. But that takes practice. Okay, I do it today. I finally taught somebody good enough to help me through my self-sabotage issues. And there's days, ladies and gentlemen, 10 years later, that I will go into the neutralization 3 questions several times in one day. It's just okay, that's just what came up. Okay. But I don't worry about it either. That's my way of going back to calm and being present. Okay. Presence, ladies and gentlemen, is a point where manifestation becomes action. When you release the angst of the past and your fear of the future, you're here. And that's where whatever you're dealing with or thinking about or trying to create starts to manifest or come to light for you. So presence is the point where manifestation becomes action. And that's real important. But it only takes a few seconds and you're completely calm. It's really amazing.
Yeah, that really sounds amazing, particularly that someone can do it on the fly, so to speak, because a lot of times people who are suffering from this kind of a situation don't necessarily always have the luxury when an attack, I'm going to call it attack, that's not probably a technical word for it, but when a panic comes on, you can't always exit the room and take a certain amount of time in private and try to calm yourself down and get grounded again. So I think the fact that you have this technique that enables people to deal with things as they come up is really powerful.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch. The um, the physical changes in a person when they find this active block and it's become neutralized. They lose years off their face, not bad. Pounds off of their physique. They stand differently. They haven't actually lost the weight, but they walk with it differently. There's a lot of really powerful things there, and it's a process. Okay, it takes 30 days to set a new behavior in the human brain. So the repetitive behavior cellular regression process takes 30 days. And there's different, you're not doing it every day for 30 days, but there's a sequence of events weekly that you go through that sets this new behavior and your ability to put stuff in check that bothers you. Okay. And once in a while, nothing happens for many months. And all of a sudden, an emotional response pops up, and they've forgotten the three questions and they can't get rid of it. So they'll reach out to the practitioner. I can't get rid of this. What's wrong? Okay. Well, a new active block has taken over from this amnesia. Amnesia is there. It don't go away. Oh, you've got a new problem to deal with, Terry. No problem. I'll fix it for you, right? Well, they don't fix it for you. They make things worse, but the amnesia doesn't know right from wrong or anything like that. It's just that vibration. We have the same vibration being extremely upset or afraid as we are very happy. Happy doesn't last as long as being afraid, though, but that's that. The key is finding the new one, and that takes only about a half an hour online with the practitioner. You walk through it very quickly because you've been through all of this patterning and stuff already. We're just looking for something that connected, and it's really quite fast the way we do that.
So interesting. Now, you gave us your example, trauma that happens as a child, and certainly the way a child interprets events would be different than the way an adult might. How do you see this happening for somebody where the trauma took place once they were an adult?
There's something in childhood consistently that when some significant, let's say an adult, a military man is in a combat situation, and they latch on to that memory over and over and over again. But before that, they consciously didn't think they thought about stuff all the time, but in fact they did. There is a memory back in our early childhood that creates a block, and that block latches on to that traumatic event later on in life. So all we can think about is what happened 2 weeks ago, and it won't go away. But in fact, something way a long time ago, because it's amnesic, ladies and gentlemen, you don't know it ever happened until you're there. And then your recall is absolutely amazing. All five senses are in perfect sequence. The person's face and their actions is crystal clear as if you're live, because our memory is quite amazing. The neural pathways back to a memory may become damaged for some reason, which then makes the memory a little foggy. But that's it. Once you clear those filters and you're in that memory, you have crystal clear recall.
We're going to take a quick break now, and then we'll be right back.
We were hiring when we were making 50 to 100K monthly losses.
And why? Welcome to episode 1.
I can't think of a single founder who's been around for a decent amount of time in business who hasn't had their tunnel of year. This was that year. We're going to be okay, yeah, Sheree. Some are going to hear this and think, you TDP. But hear me out. You only have to do the math to understand that very soon we were $500,000 down.
Wow, incredible. I mean, I never would have thought that. And I never would have thought that, any kind of traumatic incident that took place in adulthood would actually have a link back to something in childhood. Because you do think of people, as you brought up, someone who's had military service, maybe in a combat zone, they've witnessed a lot of horrors, people who've had all kinds of things happen to them as adults. You wouldn't think that, okay, this thing happened to me as an adult, and the reason I'm having this reaction to it is not because of what happened to me just now, but how it relates to something long time ago.
Yeah. Vic, at that point of the first emotional response, victimhood occurs, and we start vibrating like a victim. Okay. Two people can walk down in a major metropolitan area, can walk down a dark alley. One will get robbed. The other one, nobody will pay attention to. It's the vibration. One who gets robbed has a victim vibration, and people who are predators know that. It's like a lion will allow a person to walk right by him, and then another person come by and they get him and they eat him. there is a reason for that. There's a vibration there that you're sending out that you have no knowledge of. Okay. And so, case in point, one of my veteran clients, she was at the point of suicide. She had her rifle out and everything, and wrapped herself in a sheet on the kitchen floor so her daughter wouldn't have as much of a mess to clean up the whole thing before she reached out to me. What happened was she was sexually abused as a baby. That created the victimization. Several times through her teenage years, she was raped 3 times as a teenager. As an adult, she was raped another couple of times, including her next door neighbor, who was a friend. Him and his wife were dear friends with them. They were serving in the military together. They were out on a field exercise. They were in the same foxhole. He raped her. It's that vibration. He knew that she would never say anything. She's a victim and he's a predator. So he did that. Okay. Even though it had no relation whatsoever to the first event, it created a victimization. And once you're a victim, you're a victim. Things just keep happening to you. Now, once you find the reason for that victimhood, like her right now, before, when she very first talked to me, she could not look me in the face, let alone in the eyes. She would glance up when she first met you, and then she'd look away. And that's how she would deal with people. Okay. Now she can not only look a stranger in the eye with a smile on her face and shake their hand, she is a national leader in her association. Okay. She speaks to hundreds and thousands of people at these national conventions and everything, perfectly calm, perfect collected, because that driver is gone. Okay. And that is huge. But that victimization kept happening over and over and over again. And once all of that was stopped, that was it. I have another veteran who was ready to kill himself when he reached out to me. And, that was many long years ago, 8 or 9 years ago now. He not only has never had suicide thoughts since then, he don't even own any guns. He's gotten rid of them. Okay, there's none of that stuff in his house anymore. So his family's very safe as well. That's because that driver, that broken record, if you will, for us that are old enough to remember broken records, has stopped playing.
It's really interesting that you're bringing it up and explaining it this way, because as you're explaining it, I'm thinking in my mind about people that I know who, some of them always seem to have good luck, right? In a sense, or you wouldn't say good luck, but they just seem to not have a lot of problems. And then other people who everything always seems to be a problem, right? There's always that person, right? Or maybe more than one person who every time you run into them, it's always what happened to them, right? And it's interesting because, like you're saying, it's almost as if they see themselves as a victim. They approach everything as, what happened to me, and happened is always something bad, versus the person who's, gee, I got really lucky today. I got a seat on the bus, even if it's something small like that, right? Whereas the other person will be always approaching it from the point of view of somebody shoved me, somebody cut in front of me in line. Oh, there was this guy who tried not to pay the fare. So it's really interesting about even just the stories that you tell and how you see yourself, whether you see yourself as typically lucky and things going well for you, or as a person, as you're saying, who sees themselves as a victim, even if it's not a victim of some of the serious, issues that you've just brought up on the show.
And again, ladies and gentlemen, for listening, and thank you for doing so. You don't know what it was.
Right.
You have no recall. Okay. Complete blank. That couldn't have happened to me, right? For me, there was a photo of my dad holding me in his arms, and I was 3 months old. Says so right on the back of the picture. Okay. I had, up until I went through my CR process, I would not accept that was me in his arms. That's not me. Now, I don't care what you say. That is not me. after my CR process session, not only do I know that that's me, I know it was my uncle that took the picture. And I was 3 months old.
Wow.
So, there's a lot of connecting there once you realign the highway back to the vault. There's a lot more memory involved in that.
Now, what about people who want maybe to take a more preventive approach? Because obviously, once somebody is experiencing this kind of stress disorder, of course, there's the motivation to do something about it, or hopefully there's the motivation to do something. But are there things that people can do in advance? Because I know there's a lot of people who look to see, well, how do I prevent this kind of thing? Can I find out if there's anything lurking in my past memory that I'm not aware of, and try to get rid of it?
No, and there's a specific reason why.
Okay.
Because if you're doing preventive work, you're living in fear in the future.
Oh,
Guess what? You're
yes.
going to stub your toe, ladies and gentlemen. You cannot prevent or do prevent work to stop from stubbing your toe. It's going to happen.
Right, right.
But how you react to stubbing your toe changes. Okay. So yeah, you stubbed your toe and it hurts and you got to deal with that, but you're not sent flying back to a PTSD event that you can't get rid of that drives you crazy. Here I am. I can't walk. I can't even walk in my house without being a victim.
Right.
Two, okay, what just went off? Was it the pain? Was it the touch? What sense just hit me? Yeah, it still hurts, but what sense just hit me? What memory do I have? And who
Mhm.
am I looking at? One, two sentences, and all of that is gone. You still got the pain. That's not going to go away. But the feelings of victimization do go away very quickly. We can't prevent things that happen to us as we move in life, but we can react in a different way.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. So would you say then that on a day-to-day basis, assuming that you didn't have something terribly traumatic happen to you, right? And there are things that are really almost overwhelming that happen to people, but for people who have just like a general pattern of things going wrong and always like are telling that kind of a story, is it a matter of reframing things? Is it a matter of one person who, let's say, stubs their toe and says, as you're saying, I can't even walk around my house without something happening, versus another person who stubs their toe and it's just like, ouch, this is painful, and moves on, or says, wow, this hurt, but oh, thank God it's not broken. I'm okay. I'm okay. Everything's going to be good. Is it to some extent a matter of teaching yourself to reframe things?
I don't think it's so much of reframing as it is just being present. An
Okay.
action happened, and it's okay. I'm fine. I'm going to live, or I got to call an ambulance, or whatever it is. It is.
Mm,
It's not one or the other. It just is. It's non-duality.
right.
When we stay in non-duality, we're at that point of presence, and that's all the difference. Okay. My toe still hurts days later, but it doesn't seem to hurt as bad because I've become present and let it go,
Right.
rather than think about my toe constantly and limp and do all this other stuff that a victim characteristically does. I just move forward because I try to stay at that presence. And it
Wow.
doesn't always work. I'm a human being,
Right.
okay?
Of course.
Sometimes I get pissed and I stay pissed for a while, but there's a point where I go, okay, enough of this. Ask myself the three questions. Why am I staying like this? And I find the reason, and then I'm fine.
Yeah, I think you've brought up so many very powerful things in a short amount of time. You've really packed a tremendous amount in of value for anybody listening to this, because I think everyone listening to this either has experienced this themselves or knows somebody within close range who has experienced similar things. So there's really a tremendous amount of value that you have really brought to our listeners and to me. I've learned a tremendous amount. And so I really want to thank you, Terry. I think a lot of people would really like to know how they can contact you. I think people probably have tons of their own questions and are thinking, oh my gosh, I just love to be able to get in touch with Terry. Where can people find you?
The simplest way that I can say it, I'm a Native American, so my name is Terry Earthwind Nichols. You Google Terry Earthwind Nichols, you get one person, me.
Wow.
You get Earth, Wind, and Fire too, but that's a different thing.
Okay.
But you get one. And now if you Google Terry Nichols, you get about 17,000 in North America alone.
Right.
But Google me, and you'll find me in there, and all of my different links to different social media and all those types of things, how to get a hold of me on LinkedIn or whatever website. That's the easiest. Just go for my name, Terry Earthwind Nichols. You can add ambassador on the front of it too if you want to, but it's not necessary. And that's the quickest, easiest way to do that. Terry Earthwind Nichols.
Okay, well, I'm going to make sure that the show notes on the podcast and also in the description on the video of this, you'll have the links to that. So you'll be easy for you to reach out to Terry. I think that there is a tremendous amount to unpack, going even deeper with what Terry's been able to share here. So I really would encourage people to take the opportunity. I mean, now that you've had a chance to meet Terry, it's time to really take that further. And, take advantage of the tremendous amount of value that he's bringing here for people who are facing, whether it be very traumatic situations or things that are just holding you back.
Yeah, I would add that, everything that we do online only. We don't do in
Okay.
person. So you don't have to worry about finding me somewhere or my 42 people that work with me.
Right.
Okay. We're in on 6 continents. What is it? 17 countries now, 27 US states, and we are available in 5 languages. So no matter where you are in the world, chances are one of my people, or if not me, can help you.
Wow. Awesome. Well, Terry, thank you again for taking the time and joining us here. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, Jane. This is I can't talk about this enough. It's an amazing, amazing thing that has come out of a conversation and from the heart helping somebody.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. Well, thank you again.